Good evening. I'm Felix Lebeski. Welcome back to SL Tonight. We're continuing the adventures of Melody Ames, the Prairie Minstrel, the singing cowboy with a golden voice, a quick gun, and an even quicker wit. In this tale, Melody and his loyal companion Pedro find themselves locked up in a small town jail, taken for bandits. With a lynch mob forming outside and a stubborn but beautiful sheriff holding the keys, they'll need more than just songs to clear their names and escape with their lives. This is Treachery on the Trail, a complete Golden Age Western romance from Cowboy Love. Settle in and enjoy the ride. Melody Ames was half asleep in the saddle, his lean body relaxed, his bronze face half ridden by the bandana that protected nose and throat from the alkali trail dust. Behind him, his friend and companion Pedro slumbered peacefully on the back of Conchita, his beloved and heavily ornamented mule. They rounded a bend in the trail, and suddenly there was a wrecked stagecoach lying just before them. Melody reined in so sharply that Prairie danced and snorted. Conchita stopped short, and Pedro fell off. He bounced up indignant. "Majerdero!" he roared. "Blockhead, is this the way you treat one who buys you silver bells and red tassels for your silly ears? If—" He broke off, gaping. "An accident, Senor Melody?" "No," Melody said grimly, swinging to the ground. "A coach full of fresh bullet holes and blood is no accident. We better look around. Someone may be lying in the bushes, wounded." They advanced cautiously, hands close to their holstered guns. Pedro shook his head worriedly. "This I do not like. No people and no horses. I smell the danger, amigo." He yelped and pointed. "And there it is, a box full of troubles." "The money chest," Melody said, scowling up the iron-bound box that lay in the weeds where it had tumbled from the boot of the stage. "Still locked. This was a hold-up. The bandit must have been scared off. We'd better hide the chest, in case some hombre with loose morals happens by and report to the sheriff in the next town." They were bending to lift the heavy chest when it happened. A gun thundered from the bushes and a slug screamed from the iron clasp of the lock. As they froze, a figure stepped into sight, covering them with a rifle. "Get those hands high, you polecats! I figured you'd sneak back sooner or later, pick up your loot." Pedro made strangling sounds in his throat. Melody could only gape. The speaker with the rifle was a girl of perhaps 20, with a mass of red gold hair cascading down from under her Stetson, and eyes of frosty blue and a lovely face. She wore Levi's and a shirt, like a man, but most surprising of all, a sheriff's badge glinted from the pocket of her shirt. Melody found his voice. "Ma'am, you're kind of mistaken about us. We aren't bandits. We're just wandering cowhands heading north for the spring roundups." "Of course," the girl snapped coldly. "You just wear that mask so they can tell you from the mule. Unbuckle those gun belts and let 'em drop. If you don't think I'd shoot a man, try something." "Senorita," Pedro broke in frantically, "it is but the truth we speak. My friend is Melody Ames, the singer of sweet songs. He wears the bandana to keep the dust from his throat. We were about to hide the chest for safety and notify the sheriff." "You've notified me," the girl said. "Now hit the saddles, you varmints, and don't try to outrun a slug. You got any more fairy tales? Save 'em for the trial." He whistled sharply, and the roan mare trotted into sight. Keeping them covered, the girl hung her gun belts on her saddle horn and mounted. A gesture with the rifle sent them riding sedately ahead on her down the trail. Melody turned in his saddle. "Ma'am, if we're to be tried for this, do you mind telling us what happened? And how come a sweet girl like you is holding down a tough sheriff's job?" "I'll tell you," the girl said. 2 hours ago, a pair of bandits held up the mine payroll I was riding near, heard the shooting, and cut down on 'em from the hills. The bandits fled, but I had a hunch they'd be back for the payroll gold, so I sent the wounded on and stayed to trap 'em, and it looks like I did. As for my job, you or some of your all-hoot pals shot my daddy last week. He was sheriff, and he used his last breath to swear me in as chief deputy. According to our laws, if a sheriff dies in office, the chief deputy carries on till next election. He did that to keep Tom Ryder's gun toughs from seizing the office like they've seized everything else in the county." "But, Senorita," Pedro said, You left the chest. If the real banditos return, they will get it. A girl laughed shortly. I'm not that dumb. I moved the gold and filled the chest with rocks. Now shut up and ride. An hour later, they rode into a small cow town and were halted in front of a shack with a crude sign. Sheriff's Office, Silver Hills. A crowd of men surged out to stare at them and Melody, studying them with narrowed eyes. Thought he'd never seen a more choice collection of gun toughs and rowdies. One bigger man, beefy and dark-bearded, pushed his way up. Howdy, Miss Sue, he growled. What you got there? Bandits who held up the stage, the girl said, her voice unfriendly. I got them taking the chest. They deny it. Watching, Melody saw the man's pig eyes widen in surprise and then narrow with sly satisfaction. His thick lips twisted in a grin. Good work, Miss Sue. Your dad, Matt Barnes, couldn't have done it better. And come to think of it, these look like the same hombres I saw hazing stolen cattle through the pass one night. They look right good wrangling under the old hanging cottonwood. There'll be no hanging without a trial, Tom Ryder, Sue snapped. Until election, I'm the law in Silver Hills. Remember that. He marched Melody and Pedro into a small office, lined with reward posters, and through to a single cell at the back. As she bent to unlock the door, Melody's lithe figure made a sudden swift movement. There was a gasp, and suddenly the rifle was in his hands, and he was smiling gently at the startled, white-faced Sue Barnes. Before she could speak, Melody bowed gallantly, took the key from her numb fingers, and unlocked the cell himself. He handed back both the key and the rifle. I just wanted you to know, ma'am, he said gently, that Pedro and I could have escaped most any time we wanted to. Came along because we wanted to prove our innocence. They stepped into the cell, pulled the door shut, and waited for the girl to lock it. Stared at him a moment without speaking, then turned and fled. But Melody saw, with satisfaction, that her blue eyes were no longer cold with suspicion and distrust. He smiled to himself and began to sing a sweet, melodious song of the West. How you can sing, Pedro grumbled. You should have fled when you had your gun. That Tom Ryder I do not trust one little bit. Suddenly the door opened again and Sue Barnes came back. Her eyes were warm, her lips soft in the velvet brown of her lovely face. That was beautiful, Melody Ames, she said softly. Maybe I've been wrong about you. I hope I have. Melody smiled. We can prove it, Miss Sue. I'll give you the names of a dozen big ranchers in Texas who know us well. Send them telegrams and they'll clear us in no time. I believe you, Sue said. I'll send the wires, but I think I've known all along, in my heart, that appearances were deceiving. You may have acted like a bandit, but you sing from your heart, Melody Ames. Such music never grew in a killer's heart. Senorita, Pedro said earnestly, you have not begun to hear the songs of Melody Ames. Wait until night when the moon is full, for that is when he sings best, and you will hear music to set your heart dancing or to melt it with the loneliness of the prairie. From Laredo, Senorita to Bozeman, they listen and wait for the music of Melody Ames to come again. Neither Melody nor Sue seemed to be listening. Their hands were close together on the bars of the cell, and their glances, meeting above them, were locked in a silent communion that spoke a language beyond words. Sue broke away first, tearing her gaze from Melody's face. When she spoke, her voice held a throbbing note of longing and promise. I must go fix your suppers now, she said. Besides, being sheriff and jailer, I have to cook or see my prisoners starve. When you get answers to your wires, Melody said, you'll unlock the cell, won't you? It may be that Pedro and I can pick up the trail of the real bandits for you. My fat friend here has the nose of a bloodhound when it comes to running down bandits. Sue paused in the doorway, her eyes dancing with the lights of mischief, her lips quirking in half a smile. Let you out before tonight and that full moon Pedro mentioned? Don't be foolish. I'm going to keep you right there to sing to me until dawn. With a tinkle of laughter, she closed the door and was gone. Melody turned slowly and leaned against the bars, her gray eyes soft with memory. Pedro threw up his hands in a gesture of mock despair. How you like this thing? He demanded sorrowfully. Now I see why there are a few senoritas wearing the badges of the sheriff, and a good thing it is. Every singer of songs would be in jail and the banditos would go free. All I can hope is that you do not sing too sweetly tonight, mi amigo, or that girl will never let us go. He turned and wandered to the small barred window, hiding a grin. He peered out, and his grin froze. His round, dark face went gray, and his chubby figure stiffened. "Senor Melody," he whispered, "we are lost. Here comes that Tom Ryder swinging two ropes and leading a mob of drunken gunmen. He's persuaded them to hang us now, without trial. We're locked in there, and the Senorita Sheriff has gone away with the key. We are doomed."
Dusk is falling, soft and slow. I look into your eyes and feel the glow. A home, a fire, a girl beside me, all the things a wandering heart could need. But past your shoulder, past the hills, the purple shadows call me still. White-capped mountains, a winding trail, the siren song that never fails. I ain't singing songs of love tonight. I'm singing for the men who must be free. The open range, the far horizon light, that's the only home that calls to me. Siren of the open range, pulling me away again. Your lips are waiting, soft and near, but freedom's voice is crystal clear. Nighthawks circling in the sky remind me why a man like me can't stay. I ain't singing songs of love tonight. I'm singing for the men who must be free. The open range, the far horizon light, that's the only home that calls to me. Siren of the open range, pulling me away again. One soft kiss, then I turn away. The road is calling, I can't stay. Pedro's waiting, reins in hand, another trail, another land. I ain't singing songs of love tonight. I'm singing for the men who must be free. The open range, the far horizon light, that's the only home that calls to me. Siren of the open range, I'll ride until the morning comes again.
Melody Ames stiffened and crossed the narrow cell in a bound. He peered out the small barred window beside a sign that read, "Owl Saloon, Tom Ryder, Prop." Ryder himself, big and ugly, was waving two coils of rope and haranguing the mob. Even at that distance, Melody could see that it was made up of gun toughs and rowdies who were obviously on Ryder's payroll. "I was right," Melody grunted. "Ryder knows who the real bandits are. I'll even bet my right arm he engineered the stage hold-up himself. If he can hang us for the job, he'll close the books on the case and leave himself and his boys in the clear." "Amigo," wailed Pedro, wringing fat hands, "what does it matter how we die when we are dead? If you must think of some way to get us out of here. By the time the Senorita Sue Barnes returns with their supper and the keys to the cell, we may be dangling like ripe fruit from the cottonwood on the hill. Senor, I am no singer of love songs like you, but my poor throat will be none the better for the caress of hemp rope. Nor mine, Melody said thoughtfully. There is one slim chance. Get your face to that window and whistle for Rosita. If that mule has learned half the lessons you taught her, we may get out of this yet. Call her and keep calling. She is tied at the hitch rail. Sweating, Pedro leaned his face to the window and whistled a soft, evocative call. An answering bray came from the front of the building. He whistled again. There was a squeal, a stamp of hoofs, and then the tinkle of silver bells. Rosita the mule trotted around the corner. While Pedro coaxed anxiously, Melody stuck his long arm through the closet bars of the window. Rosita edged closer. Melody's eager fingers touched her saddlebag. A moment later he straightened and his hand came through the bars clutching a six-gun. He grinned. When I tucked that spare gun in Rosita's pack, I never figured it'd come in so handy. Stand back, son. The mob was surged up the street now, yelling and whooping. When a particularly loud burst of uproar reached them, Melody leveled the gun at the cell's door lock and thumbed back the hammer. Shots were lost in the mounting roar of the mob. Splinters of iron flew from the lock. Melody pried a last splinter away with the gun barrel and reached inside. Something snapped. The great bolt slid back and the cell door opened. Quick, Pedro gasped. We must mount and flee. Rosita and Prairie can outrun them until darkness hides us. No, Melody said, leading the way to a side window opposite the mob. We're headed for Sue Barnes' place. If we run away, we'll be granted fugitives. As funky as that girl is, she's about due to be trampled by that buzzard rider. Our escape would be all the excuse he needs to seize the sheriff's office and take over. But amigo, wailed Pedro as they wriggled through the narrow window. We do not even know where she lives. Sure we do. In the whole town, only one house had a flower bed and curtains at the windows. Down that alley, fast. Panting, protesting, Pedro lumbered after his tall friend. They darted down an empty alley behind a saloon, a harness shop, a boarding house, and other shacks. Presently they came to the edge of town, facing a neater house that sat apart with bright flowers before it and white curtains behind the windows. From behind them came a rising roar of anger, followed by crashes as the mob vented its rage on the empty cell. Inside, quick, Melody hissed. They'll head this way the moment Ryder gets them organized again. They burst into a neat kitchen. Sue, looking flushed and lovely and utterly feminine in a soft dress and apron, turned a startled face from the stove. You! What? How? Swiftly, Melody outlined what happened. Sue's face paled, and she snatched the Winchester from its rack. I'll warn Tom Ryder. He grabbed everything in Silver Hills but my office, and he's not got control of that. Stay back, and Melody reached over and gently took the rifle. Let me handle this, Miss Sue. Before she could protest, he stepped past her and out onto the little front porch to face the mob that was roaring and boiling up the street. A yell of rage went up as he appeared. Smiling, Melody tilted the rifle at his hip and fired. Big Tom Ryder, leading the mob, yelled suddenly as his hat spun off his head. Melody fired again, and a man behind Ryder sprawled on the ground, tripped as his boot heel was shot away. The whole mob drew up short. Melody levered a fresh shell into the barrel, conscious that Pedro and Sue, holding six guns, had stepped out to flank it. He eyed the mob. The next one goes at eye level, he announced pleasantly. Anyone who wants to be first, step right ahead. You, Mr. Ryder? Tom Ryder, his big face purple with rage, choked on a rush of words. Get 'em, he bawled thickly. There's only three of them, dull-livered coyotes. Rush 'em. You start it, Tom, a jarring voice snarled from the crowd. We'll come to your funeral. Tom Ryder's eyes was the terrible sight of an empire of fear crumbled. He had ruled these thugs by gold and fear, and now, against the greater fear of Melody's uncanny aim, he was powerless. With a sudden rumble of maddening hate, Ryder lumbered forward. He made no move towards his holstered guns, but his massive hands opened and closed hungrily as he advanced. The rest stayed back, frozen. Melody tossed the rifle to Pedro and leaped down to the ground. He took 2 steps forward and Tom Ryder's fist swung. Melody ducked under the whistling blow, and when he came up, his own fists were in a blur of motion. There were 2 sharp cracks, and Ryder went over backwards. He came up snarling, swinging. Melody was hit and flung back, and then he drilled in again. Ryder's face turned to a bloody pulp, and his wind whistled through broken teeth when at last he went down and stayed down. He lay on his back, pig eyes still blazing hatred, smashed lips mouthing curses. Melody leaned toward him and then raised his head. Hear that, Miss Sue? He called loudly. He confesses to sending the bandits after the coach. He says if I won't hit him again, he'll tell us all about the rustling and robberies. There was a nervous stir in the crowd of toughs. Men began to shift back from the front, eyes whipping in affirmative fear. Melody pretended to listen again, his steely arms pinning Ryder down. Who? He asked loudly. What name, Ryder? You say he shot them? A man in the crowd suddenly turned and bolted. The movement set off a panic, and in a moment they were all running. Melody stood up, grinning. Cut off the head, and the rest dies, he said cheerfully. They'll all be gone by morning, then you can deal with Ryder here as you want. Little digging should tie him in with plenty of dirt, according to what you say. Sue gave a little glad cry and sprang from the porch. Without faltering, she ran straight into Melody's arms. Pedro marched past him, grinning, to prod the battered rider towards the jail. Buena suerte, he murmured. Good luck, amigo. I'll fix the cell to hold this one while you sing the little songs. Dusk was falling. Looking into Sue's eyes, Melody felt his heart pound and strange yearnings swept him. He thought of a home, purity and love, a fireside of his own, and a girl beside it to inspire his song. He felt Sue's slim body tremble in his arms, and her eyes told him that her lips were waiting, her hopes suspended. He looked past her and saw the purple shadows lengthening from the hills, saw the fading silver of the sage, the sheen of white-capped mountains beyond, and he felt again the stirring mystery that had been his driving force. What lies beyond the next hill? What is tomorrow's promise? Melody Ames looked down at the girl in his arms and began to sing, from his heart and from his soul. He sang no love song, this time, but the haunting melodies of the open range, the winding trail, the far horizons that are a siren song to men who must be free. He sang and saw the cloud come into Sue's eyes as she listened and read his meaning. While shadows lengthen and nighthawks swirl, while horizons beckon, and the west is free, men like Melody Ames must go on over lonely trails. She reached up at last and kissed him, turned away. Melody turned and saw Pedro waiting, sitting quietly on Rosita, holding Prairie's reins. Pedro smiled sadly. I heard your song, senor, he said softly, and I understood your message. Shall we go now? The end. And that is how Melody Ames, the Prairie Minstrel, turned a jail cell and a lynch mob into another tall tale of the Old West. With his voice, his courage, and a little help from a fiery sheriff, justice and a little romance won the day. If you're enjoying these Melody Ames adventures, let me know in the comments which Western story you want next. The full comic will be available to read at www.sltonight.com. Been Felix Lebeski here on SL Tonight. Thanks for watching, partners. I'll see you in the next sit-down story. Keep riding the trail. Good night.